Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Michael, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Pleased to be here.
Talk to me about my favorite topic back when I was a consultant myself. Procurement, negotiation work. What got you into all this?
Well, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so that was my degree. But after I graduated, I went to work in manufacturing, and I typically was either a production or a manufacturing manager, and that meant I was often either working directly in procurement or responsible for procurement. And so that's, where I started to get involved in the procurement activity of the business. I found that I quite liked it. I played to my strengths. And so that's how I ended up as a procurement consultant.
What do you, so funny, mechanical engineer, Hussam, my co-founder, is a mechanical engineer as well. Funny how mechanical engineering takes us to places that we wouldn't suspect in the first place. So what problem do you help solving right now? Like, what is it that people get from working with you?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is reduction in cost, but there's kind of a little bit more to it, as you can imagine. I mean, there is a fundamental challenge in every business in terms of procurement, because the challenge is, how much do you invest in the procurement team? You can obviously go in big, recruit, very high flying, very talented people, and they're going to make an impact for you. But the problem is they come with a big price ticket. The adding to your wage bill a lot, and then it's year on year on year. You need to be achieving results, and so this is the challenge for a business, and most businesses end up playing it cautious, and so they don't invest enough in the procurement department because I think they've got they're not crazy. There's a kind of understanding, if you get this high flying chap in and a six-figure salary, there'll be an impact in year one, maybe year two, and then will that still happening in year 3, 4, 5 and down the line? So there's this inherent difficulty in knowing how much to invest in procurement, and that's the niche that I identified over 30 years ago, where I can help companies. So the idea is you bring in a top flight person, he or she makes an impact, you get that benefit, and then they go away again. So you haven't got that ongoing salary cost. And so that's basically the formula.
Yeah, it's the famous pay me money so I can show you how to save money dilemma, and how you deal with that.
Yeah.
So do you have a specific industry, niche, company size that you typically help with this?
Well, it's kind of developed over the years. So if I said niche, I probably would say manufacturing companies. 2 reasons for that. One is because that's my background. That's where I feel comfortable. But 2, if a company is making something, it typically will have it's spending a lot of money on materials and components. And so there's a lot to go at. And so that's the other criteria, really. We may talk about how in my business we offer a guarantee, and to be able to offer that guarantee, there has to be enough procurement to go at. So typically, we generally wouldn't work with a business with more than a couple of million pounds or euros procurement expenditure. So that's kind of a bit of a level there. But having said that, so manufacturing companies we work with a lot, but the fact is, procurement as a process, I would say, is the same wherever you go. The principles are the same. Negotiation is the same. There's always specifics around it which you have to get up to speed with, but the process of negotiation is the same. So we've also worked with quite a lot within the National Health Service in the UK, with local authorities also in the UK. So it doesn't always have to be a manufacturing company, but that's our norm. That's, if you press me for a niche, that's what I would say, manufacturing.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose there are more costs to be saved in a manufacturing company than in a professional services company, for instance. So it will make sense to focus more on a niche like this. It's interesting for the governmental institution. Is that what you said? You also served like some governmental institution with cost savings?
Yes. So the National Health Service, we've done work in. Also, it was a very interesting project we did that work for the National Gallery in London. So that's very much a national institution in the UK, but not in buying paintings and things like that, but obviously in their products and their services for their massive buildings, their repair things and stuff like that. So so it has been. So as I do believe very much that good negotiation theory can apply almost across anything. We've worked with the public sector as well as the private sector.
So you had a kind of dodge before dodge.
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, when I think about that, and then I think absolutely in the public sector, what's happening in the US, if we put aside any views on the politics of it, there is always enormous amounts of waste in the public sector.
I'm French, I would know. But fair enough. So tell me a bit more how you've been marketing, Michael. Like, what has worked for you to get the attention of those manufacturing companies, but to somehow end up working with a government institution as well? Like, what have you done that works for you to get leads, knock on the door?
So the challenge here is we've got to convince a potential client that we can do what they're doing better than they're doing it. And also, we need access to their supply chain, which means to talk and work directly with their key suppliers. So that can feel pretty scary. You're gonna let these consultants loose on your supply chain. Are we going to piss them off? Are we going to upset them? That is a rational fear. How do we overcome that? Well, the one way we dealt, when I first started the business, it was in terms of fee structure, it was conventional fee structure. We're management consultants focused on procurement. We have a daily rate, you pay us, and then we do the job for you. But I think because of this fear, are we really going to deliver? Are we going to upset their supply chain? We had to change the structure. And so we have a shared structure. There is still a daily rate, but we get paid a share of the saving that we achieve. So there's a sort of joint enterprise in getting the results. But most importantly, we say if at the end of this project you, Mr. Customer, are not in the black, you're not making savings, then we will refund everything you paid us, including expenses. So that the whole lot we will refund. Now, in 30 years, we've never had to do that. But nevertheless, when you're sitting across the table from a managing director or an operations director, what we're trying to get across there is we are prepared to put our money where our mouth is. We will stand on our professional reputation to deliver for you. So our tagline for the business is results, not rhetoric. So we're all about results.
That is a crazy good offer.
That's what I always think when I'm telling people.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with someone who does something very similar to you in the US. And the thing that they hit me with was, it's 100% performance based. But because of that, people don't necessarily attach a lot of value to it in the first place, so they don't take them up on the offer. How do you tackle that?
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I think actually, if you do, so we don't actually do 100% performance based, but I know some companies do in this sector, and I do think that is exactly the problem. If you come in and you're free, then you struggle to get engagement because you're just in the way. That you're not costing anything. So we have what we believe in the consulting world is a very modest daily rate, but nevertheless, it is still a daily rate. So you still have to pay us. But the guarantee says that if we fail to deliver, then we'll refund that fee. So I think that's exactly right. And it's a crucial sort of psychological problem that if you don't have a fee at all and you're 100% contingency based, then it's really difficult. I mean, the other thing that makes my business unique is that there are quite a few companies who specialize in what you might say, common supplies across all businesses, energy and stationery and all those sorts of things. And there are a lot of companies in that niche, and that's because it's kind of low risk in general. What we do when we're working with manufacturing companies anyway, and actually also in the health service in the UK, we are prepared to negotiate and get involved in the core materials that you need for your business. So the steel you buy, the electronic components you buy, and in the case of the NHS, we were involved in helping them negotiate contracts on implants, hips and knees and that sort of thing. So the main products of the business, where a lot of people who do cost reduction consultancy consider that to be a bit too risky and a bit too specialist. But this comes back to my belief, which I think I've proven over 3 decades, is that if you know how to negotiate, it almost doesn't matter what you're negotiating. You do need to get up to speed with specifics, but the basic process of negotiation is the same, whatever you're negotiating.
Amen to that. So that's a crazy good offer, and I see how, people could be just drawn to it, right? That doesn't tell me how you advertise it, Michael. So you have a crazy good offer, which I guess does all the selling for you with a bit of negotiation. It's your job after all. But how do you get the attention of those manufacturing head of procurements, or actually, who's the ICP? Who's the person that makes the decision of hiring you?
It's usually not the head of procurement, and we can come to why in a moment. It's usually the operations director who
because you do their job. That makes sense.
Or the managing director. Okay.
So how do you get into the room with the head of operations, the managing directors, to be like, hey, this is a crazy good offer, we should take you up on it? How do you get in the room in the first place?
Well, I'll be honest, it's not easy, is it? Back in the day, it would be direct telephone calls. So, we have a lady in the office and she has this thankless task of going through the list and try and get hold of people. It's very, very difficult. And the hit rate is very, very low. But it's like panning for gold. You just got to get on with it. In more recent times, it's gone over to email. So it would be direct email to the operation director or the managing director. So a lot of thought goes into that first direct email. To be honest, Guillaume, the hit rate is still low on that. It's not easy, even though you're right to say on the face of it, it's a crazy good offer. But I wonder, sometimes I wonder whether it's such a good offer that people get a bit wary of it. What's the catch? There is no catch. But yeah, so in the past, direct telephoning, now direct email is the main reason. After 3 decades, you can imagine quite a lot of it is coming from previous clients, recommendations, that sort of thing.
What made you go into this, Michael? I'm asking because it's not common to do cold calling as a consultant. I think it's a fantastic way to get business, don't get me wrong. Cold outreach is extremely powerful. if done right, as you just pointed out. But it's not the route that most consultants will think of when they're like, okay, we're getting referrals, that's good, but now I'd like to, have an acquisition channel on top of that to accelerate the business growth. To give typical examples, but people would want to speak at conferences, do some LinkedIn content, which pros and cons to each of them, obviously. What made you go down the route of cold outreach?
Well, I do or have done, I should say, both of those. Speaking at conferences and LinkedIn activity as well. And that they have value. There's no question about that. But I think at the end of the day, over the years, the most important thing is that we've got to get the offer in front of a very senior person, and that means developing. There's a high level of expertise that goes into obtaining the right email address, making sure that it does get to the managing director's laptop and doesn't get caught up in spam and things like that. So, I mean, there is no easy answer to that, but it's that's what we found to be the most effective. But I have to say, it is a low hit rate. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to get one hit rate, one successful inquiry. And the other thing I would say is that there can be a very long period between initial interest from a client to actually, signing on the dotted line and agreeing to a project. Now, sometimes it snowballs very quickly. You'll get an initial contact, set up a meeting. They like the idea, it can be done, in a month. I think thinking back, the longest period between initial contact and finally giving the go ahead was about 15 years. So that's how long it is. And that's in that period, there's just the odd, email back and forth. How's it going? Just keeping in contact with someone before eventually they go, you know what? I think we will do this. It's crazy.
How do you go from that? And so, amen to this. That all makes sense. I have not much to add. I mean, let me rephrase. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. You want to reach out to 100 people to get 2 positive answers and 1 that's going to actually move forward. And then you just do as many hundreds as you can. But okay, maybe I'm going to say this. Consultants underestimate how that applies for anything. They'll post once or twice a week on LinkedIn with moderate engagements, and they'll wonder why they didn't get any deals over the last 6 months. It's because usually it takes much more than this, not just in content, but actually tracking who's following from the content, who's engaging, who's commenting, who's liking, who's visiting the profile, reaching out to those people because they are warm now, but you still need to reach out and trigger a conversation. Not to say, are you ready to buy just yet? But like, hey, thank you for engaging. Like, what else can I do? Do you want more free resources? Link to the content of the post that you just posted. And it takes a lot of reps. From your cold outreach, how do you, and that's going to be particularly interesting because people are used to sell, to refer to people, but most of the time those people are already sold because they got referred to you and they already had a problem to fix. When you reach out cold though, even if the offer is crazy good, you still have to do the selling. Can you walk us through your sales motion? Like how do you get someone to go from picking up the phone and saying, yeah, it might be interesting, to let's rock and roll. Michael, let's do this. Can you walk us through how you make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, after initial contact, the first stage, as you'd expect, would be to meet up. If it's a UK client, we'll meet up face to face. In recent years, when it's an overseas client, we might do it, like this. But yeah, so a face-to-face meeting where we just so the potential client has the opportunity to really dig into this offer, to understand how it works. And there's always a lot of questions. But equally important, it gives me an opportunity to understand more about the potential client, so the typical things that we might discuss are, what is your procurement expenditure? What are the top items on the top suppliers in that expenditure? What is your procurement team setup. And well, why did you agree to a meeting with me is obviously an important question. If they've agreed to a meeting, the chances are they do need to cut costs. And I would say, although I'm biased, I would say every business needs to cut costs, because, you know, if you're in the private sector, you're in a competitive world. And so it should be an ongoing, determined effort, month by month, year by year, to drive costs down, to increase profitability, to secure the future of the business.
I like that. I'm just going to double down on one of the things that you mentioned, which is you can't close what you don't open. And I think opening your calls with like, hey, what really motivated you to meet up today? Which you're doing in person, which I like. That can very much be like, what motivated you to book the call? What motivated you to answer to the ad? What motivated you to, you know, take this phone call? I think people underestimate how important it is to get the lead to acknowledge that they have a problem, so that you can further down match a solution with it. Something that I found interesting in your breakdown. When I was a consultant myself, Michael, the partner who kind of taught me everything, was like, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. There are the hunters and there are the farmers. It's not good or bad. It's just two different ways of approaching business. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after the business. That's my job. And he was like, but the partners bringing in the most money are the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over-deliver, transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project involving other teams from the firm. Like, those are the ones who win big. I can't help but thinking that you arrive in a manufacturing company, you look at all the expenses, all their costs, you save them, I don't know, 30%, you take home 10%, whatever it is. And then what? The work is done, right? How do you farm, Michael?
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. I like that, and I think really what we're doing here is making a distinction between the niche type of consultant that we are and a more general management consultant. A more general management consultant, it makes perfect sense what you're saying. You know, you're looking to say, you know, how much more can we do here? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just good business. I think part of our pitch is this idea that we will make a big splash for you, and then we get out of your hair. Now, the reality is that we probably will work with them again, because in a few years' time, and this happens not infrequently, a few years' time, they'll go, we've lost a contract. We weren't competitive enough. What are we going to do about it? Let's get that lot in again. And it's quite amazing, really, because after we'll have an initial engagement. We will identify where the waste is in the supply chain, get it all out, typically say, you know, maybe £500,000 for a typical client. And then a few years later, we'll be invited again, and you can do the same again, because in the interim period, because of just the way that it is, the way that human nature is, when you're the permanent employee, I guess, how could we put it? You're not hungry enough. That's the problem. It's just the nature of things. And so even, you know, 3, 4, 5 years later, you can come back in and save another £500,000. And what's extraordinary, and then the senior management will go, well, how does that work? They say, did they set it up at the beginning, you know, deliberately leaving some on the table so they could come back later and do it again? It's not that. You know, obviously in the first engagement, we're driving out all the costs we can. There is a balance between time and effort. So you put your time where there's the most results coming out. So we have a different mode of working. We do work repeatedly with clients, but we don't, in general, expand the work. Sometimes the client will expand it. They'll get to know me in particular, and they'll say, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. Can you help with this? Can you help with this? Can you help with this? But that isn't generally a metric that we put on ourselves. So there is, I guess, from our point of view, there is a need to keep that bathtub full of opportunities full all the time, because we will go through them, although we will come back to some, hopefully, in the future.
Amen to that. We've kind of been flying through this interview, Michael. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. I don't know if you're a fan of cricket or baseball. What's your number one challenge right now? What's the one nut that you're trying to crack that, once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level? Like, what would that be for you?
Well, I think, Guillaume, we've been talking about it. It has been from day one, and it will be until the day I retire. It's acquiring the clients in the first place. That's always the most challenging part of the job. Doing the job, that's the easy bit. Getting the client, convincing them that you're going to allow this person to come in your business, rummage through your underwear, if you'd use a metaphor, go into all these different corners and get really involved. I can see that's a tricky decision. It's wonderful once you've done a project, and then if you're coming back later, or maybe the person you've worked for goes to another business, when they know how it works, that they know that there's not a catch, that's wonderful. And that does create, quite a lot of the total amount of business is that working with people from before. But we've still, even after 3 decades, we still have to keep topping up the opportunity. So that means finding new clients. I mean, we've had clients, a perfect client for us is typically, maybe a multinational company with lots of operating companies around the globe. Because what can happen then is that, that they all talk to each other. Oh, we use this company and they did a great job for us. And so, we have got a client where we've worked for, a dozen of their different operating companies. So we're always looking for one of them. That would be great to find a new one of them. But so I would say probably at least half of activity is from referral plus previous clients, but also half is from finding new opportunities. That's the biggest challenge.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing this, Michael. I want to double down on a few things, and most importantly, give credit where credit is due. At the end of the day, a business is acquiring customers, delivering good services to those customers. It's funny that you put so much focus on the acquisition, which obviously is a challenge that most businesses face, whether they like it or not, and whether they admit it or not. I think in your case, when you have an offer so dialed in and so good, it also explains that, I mean, you've been doing it for 30 years, so obviously you know a thing or two, but I see how this wouldn't be an issue at all, which is not the case of every consultant out there. So yeah, that's an interesting bit. The 50-50, I think is amazing. That's also good to give. The reason I'm asking this question, right, is there's going to be other consultants out there listening to this show being in the exact same situation. It's always good to hear from your peers, like how they think about solving the problem that you're facing yourself. I think when you say 50-50, that also gives a perspective for people who are like only relying on referrals right now and thinking, what can I do to grow my business? How do I get more referrals? Well, that's one way. But if you set up an actual acquisition channel, this is what you're not getting right now. You could potentially double the business if you were saying, okay, I'm going to keep on getting referrals because I deliver an exceptional work, but I'm also going to acquire customers on the other side, which is challenging because it's hard. Business is tough. Getting into the room with the right people is tough, but that's what we get rewarded for at the end of the day. So, interesting one. Michael Phillips, ladies and gentlemen. Michael, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
So you could find me on LinkedIn, of course. Our website is phillipsconsulting.co.uk. I have also written a book about negotiating, which I like to plug. It's not going to make me rich, but I'm very pleased with it. The Naked Negotiator. Type that into Google. You'll find that book, and it's a book. It focuses on a salary negotiation, actually. But it is, in terms of negotiating, it can apply to any negotiation. So the principles, the theories in the book, and it's a nice, easy, it's a narrative style book. Yeah, look that up. But the business, phillipsconsulting.co.uk.
We'll put all the links in the description. I can say one thing for sure, two things for sure. One, we've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview, Michael, me. And two, the man knows how to title a book. That's definitely how you grab attention. Michael, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thanks. Great to speak with you, Guillaume.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.